lot of times when I, when we talk about, when you've been traveling, you've been talking to so many people, you forget what you said your whole
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
But I've taken, I've made slides.
From him to his sister, you know, sort of house hunting letter, saying, eventually, this is the school.
All right.
It was built as the school, and it's. Are you going in? Hello. So George and Dragon was the other pub, and Darwin met villagers. In areas where there's chalk, because the flints form deep in the chalk. Yes.
Been a while.
This was put on very recently because this is pregnant, and she gave birth within a week of arrival, and then
that baby died
infant
very
died.
quickly. Yeah, September 23rd, October 16th.
A fortnight later, I think. Wonderful one.
Right, that's your aunt.
My aunt, my grandmother's aunt.
Your grandmother's aunt.
Yes. And she, I can't imagine that the body is here. They're probably
This is just a
ashes
memorial
or
stone.
yes,
Right.
yes. Was buried here a year before Darwin died, and there's an extraordinary account of the funeral. And Francis, the son, remembered seeing his father standing at the grave, looking into it. The son feeling, he's thinking
Of his own mortality.
Yes.
Right. Well, Raz was I mean, Charles was very fond of his brother. They lived together in
yes,
and
yes.
Darwin's
They
was
buried.
such that
Yes, Raz was a sort of very lonely bachelor who lived in.
and the children all were
Yes.
politely giggling at that.
Yes. Towards us, and the bay window he built. So the house he bought.
Right.
The man, Buxton Brown, how Darwin had it all, and then also just advise about the garden and refilled with all the old furniture. And they also then decided that certain parts of the collection.
This tribe was here before as
Yes,
well.
yes.
I take it.
And there's a watercolour from the 1830s of a view of the house from over there that shows. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Unfortunately, this the floor-to-ceiling windows.
Yes,
This must
yes.
have been very bright and lovely.
Yes. And there were, there's one remark, and he'd obviously just been taken out by Emma because the photographer had come for the day.
And he looks a little bit grumpy.
And this is a facsimile,
The
but
cabinet?
the cabinet, but is in the summer when plants are growing.
Yes. You see it's up there, it's a showcase, they slid down on the thing they had. Yes.
Yeah, the whole the study. Battery in right now. Das cabinet.
photographer,
Right.
and
So she reflected her.
asked them to write it.
And Charles.
Yes, and shows you. These pictures. This is
the chairs are original.
Yes, and then
did he have a? He didn't have a toilet back there too, did he? Just
I
had a
think.
basin
Well,
for-
I mean, he would have done. Well, no, he would. And when and because it must have been given back, and it's Darwin wrote about the microscope stool, that when he and Etty would come in and Darwin wasn't there, the two of them would sit on the stool and pump themselves
and play around
round the room with his walking stick.
Right.
And that,
Yeah.
I think, well,
the story that you write in Andy's box about Darwin being perfectly happy to interrupt his work.
Yes,
A child came in and
yes.
needed something, wanted something, just wanted to talk.
Finished barnacles, began sorting notes on species theory. And the sorting you then see in the photograph that they took of this room before Darwin, before he moved to the newer study. That is actually
that is the cupboard in which it was kept.
Yes.
That's fabulous. It won't photograph, but it's still wonderful. We'll have to remember.
They just, Darwin kept all the old papers, and when.
Thank God he was such a background.
Yes, exactly, and then the children, the grandchildren rather, used that cupboard as their changing room, because when they were here. When they came for their summer holidays, when Emma was here in her widowhood, they would put on plays for the servants and the others.
Although you did write about the Darwins being fairly relaxed about which could also argue that people blamed. This helps.
Yes. That you see in photographs is that, yes.
It looks like those are plane trees, correct? Those two.
No. No. I think, yes. How they divided them. To be able to eat a berry.
Yes.
And feel that.
Yes. That continuity.
This person,
and that's pretty wonderful.
And there was a little plot along there which was one of Darwin's experiments. One different plant species lived there, and we've counted 19. Irene and her friends have done a plot.
Just goes into blurry mode and decides that it's going to be blurry.
And so you read about Darwin, and Darwin did wonderful. For that one, he thought, gosh, they seem to have some kind of behaviour. And
it's sunk down that much?
No, that is. You see, it will be moving. That is the original. It was
really soft.
Yes.
It had been moved?
It moved, and here's the kitchen garden. And
it really does go on for quite a ways, doesn't it?
Yes.
But then they were, as you pointed out in your book, they were feeding 20-odd people.
Yes.
And so, when you think about how much they had to grow here, that was quite astonishing.
Yes. Darwin, the garden was Emma's, and the kitchen garden particularly was where she had to make sure that the vegetables were grown for the household, and Darwin was allowed a small area for his experimental beds, and he was given this little enclosure here,
The one closest
which
to
was
us?
closest to the greenhouse, where he did his propagation and his animation and everything like that. And you always crossbreed. And then, so he did primula here, and then work on sweet peas. He really got going on the botany. He built a greenhouse and had
Nice and warm
this
in here.
heated section, and then
This was
Too less
heated, though, I mean, this was heated by.
this was so that he could no.
He actually had
There's a
a
boiler
heater.
and there's
Oh, wow. How about that? Heat or what?
no, it's hot water.
Or hot water?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
so-
not. And then plant movement to light, gravity, the other side. And he was sent it by his American friend Asa Gray,
Right.
and
Pretenders.
had it under observation, and he discovered that it did a very, very strange thing, which was the tendrils, instead of growing towards the light, when they found some darkness, they went into it. And he found that because he had a piece of string hanging on the wall, and he saw that one tendril had sort of got into it, and then had got inside. And so he put a piece of string, which this efforts to reproduce, and discovered that this was a clear pattern of behaviour. And he then wrote to Asa Gray and said, could you please tell me where this plant grows? And because it does this strange thing.
Yeah, it is.
And Asa Gray wrote back to say, yes, it grows in these Florida swamps, where the trees that it has to climb up are all covered in moss. So if it's going to attach itself, it needs
It's looking for
to get
dark-
in, so
dark
it's just
to attach
flipped.
itself.
It's in
Oh, this was also part
normally
of the garden.
here. This is an observation hive for bees. They come in through that hole.
Yes.
And he had this big problem.
How just depending upon standards.
Yes.
You know, what is considered the best cow or the best bull?
Yes.
It was a wonderful series of pictures.
Yes. Yes.
Like you were talking
Yes. And here you see, and then these
To attack a bumblebee
attack
nest.
a bumblebee
Oh, that
nest
doesn't seem
underground.
right.
This one was
This
the one that
came
had to
down.
be
Right.
because of that decay. But they kept this one up so that you could see it. This was originally like that. Her with her wide skirt, and they wanted a dry path because to walk in the wet, and so he had his encyclopedia of gardening, which included a section on garden paths, and there was a recipe for how to produce make a dry path. Some scientists, some successful scientists, out of the other.
Right.
And this you see here.
To it.
Yes.
And so she's got footage of walking through a big chunk of that section.
Yes.
Of,
Yes. The children playing their sandpit was just here, and
that was a little shelter that
yes,
she
yes,
had.
yes,
That was very nice.
yes.
Yes, I hadn't realized that this was on a ridge, and that does make a difference in terms of the topography and drainage.
Yes,
and,
yes, yes. One of Downe and Emma's favourite places was a place they called the terrace, which is, you see there's a line of trees along there.
Yes.
Just below it, the land falls deeply down. And he, as a little boy, I think he was down as sort of 6, Bernard was 6 or 7. 6, I think, when he died. And he had these memories and less developed larvae, which at the 5th at 5 p.m. had been put on pasteboard and kept since in Passage Hall. The passage we walked into was on the outside of the house, had no windows, and so it was consistently cool and shaded. And he used that as a place with a uniform temperature that he could understand. And when Mrs. Darwin welcomed the next genteel visitor to the house, they would have to walk in through the door with...
July 14th, 1856. May 17th, 1857.
Yes, and then what she does is there are some of the parts are dominant and prevail over the others. View of something incorporated in the view of natural selection, for natural selection acts by either not adaptation or by hence, in fact, the law of the conditions of existence is the highest law, as it includes, through inheritance of former adaptations, that of unity of type. To keep the nibs which were plucked from the geese in the backyard. You cut the nibs and then keep them sharp.
So she would not have been given the metal nibs, or she would not have been able to use the metal nibs all the time?
I think it was a time when they were sort of, they were moving from one to the other. And then what really struck me, what hooked me, was this note. I found the box to realise something about what it might be, and then when I unfolded the note and saw that it was Darwin's writing and saw how carefully he'd been looking, managing the treatment, then watching her condition.
Just so sad.
And across it.
That's what I was thinking. But I was worrying with the light from the window from that direction, maybe that might create a glare. Francis had 3 wives?
Yes. Slide.
Right, that's wonderful.
And my first encounter with Darwin was sliding down that in my grandparents' home.
Your grandparents got the slide.
Yes.
Very good.
That's why Stephen has it. It came down to my grandmother. They haven't got the. I'm not happy with it as a way of. Yes. These are some of the best photographs. That's the only picture of Downe with another person. Yes.
They did that very well in the movie, by the way.
Yes, that's the one of Henrietta, which you just saw up there. That way you can hold it and write.
Right.
And when he in London, all the London notebooks are written that way.
Yeah.
And that's because.
He's not having
to hold it. It's on the page.
Portrait, not landscape.
Yes. And then once he's entered it into his other text, he then crosses out the passage to show that he's.
Yeah, so we've got this one. We've got the one on display downstairs, which is actually the one that was sent to Lyle.
Right. And was stolen and then recovered.
And was stolen, unfortunately recovered. So aren't we lucky?
What a history.
And then we've also got.
I'm so sorry. I woke it up. Oh, you did? Expected you to go on and you went on. I don't know whether coming along the car, because Mark wasn't with us, we discussed how Downe House is on
The field on that path that we saw, that public path.
parts have changed. Field boundaries have changed a little bit. How did we do
That's quite honest. I'm sure that
there's a map of this whole area, valley and his Orcus Bank, because there was in 1840
areas that they walk through and graze periodically.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
Okay,
and I mean
it's
tremendous
hopeless.
biodiversity here. We
Really not.
improved grassland, so they haven't had the fertilisers and nitrates.
Yes,
and-
exactly.
But this
Killed
is where
off all the
Randal's. Oh God, what is your relative Ruth?
Oh, Ruth Pardell.
Yes.
Yes,
Is she a niece? What's the relationship?
She's a cousin.
A cousin.
Yes,
That's right. No,
yes.
I couldn't get it.
Yes.
Yes. This is where I stood with Ruth.